Welcome to the Women Growing Wealth Podcast. I'm your host, Tamar Hermes. This is the podcast where women learn to make, invest, and keep more money the women's way. And today we're exploring one of the most underestimated wealth building tools out there: connection. Connection with yourself, connection with others, and your connection with money. Our guest, Jennifer K. Hill, knows this intimately. She's a serial entrepreneur who's built and sold a successful global recruiting company based on alignment, not just resumes. Now, she's the co-founder of OptiMatch, an AI-driven platform helping people and companies thrive by creating authentic, fulfilling relationships. And in this conversation, we're going really deep. Jennifer shares how tapping into her intuition changed her life and how she learned to trust her body, her energy, and her inner yes in both life and investing. In this episode, you're going to learn why your relationship with money mirrors your self-perception, how intuition can be both spiritual and scientific, daily practices like two-handed journaling that can unlock your own clarity and creativity, and why in a world increasingly driven by AI, authentic human connection is the currency that matters most. If you've been hustling for answers outside of yourself, this episode is your reminder. The wealth you're seeking, it starts within. Let's get into it. I am so excited for today's interview. I'm here with my friend Jennifer Hill. She is an extraordinary entrepreneur who has built and exited a company. She's also on to new endeavors. And what she's really going to share with us today, which I believe will really help women move forward on their wealth building journey, is the power of connection and relationship and that currency. Because we often forget that how we actually grow wealth is generally not alone. We grow wealth with others. And so with that, I would love to introduce to you to Jennifer. And Jennifer, we're just going to dive right in with you introducing, saying hello. And also, I would love to talk about your ability to connect with people and cultivate relationships. I'm wondering, have you always had that? Or is this something that you've developed over time? Was little Jennifer just the connector too?
Thank you, Tamar. It's great to be here with you and your audience. So, several parts to this question. When I was a little girl, I honestly didn't understand people in quite the same way. It depends on what age you're talking about. When we're really little kids, you don't yet understand that there's a right and a wrong way socially to do things, right? So perhaps when I was like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I felt more adventurous and open, etc., until like maybe the first time something happened where it's like, ooh, uh-oh, I did something I wasn't supposed to. And then I shut down. So the way I describe it to people tomorrow, it's kind of like you got a book on how to be a human being, and he and she got books on how to be a human being. And when I opened mine, it was blank inside. And honestly, that led from, when I was probably 8 years old on into my early 20s and even early 30s to decades of broken relationships, misunderstandings, and heartbreak for me and for others. And it's really been this arduous journey of self-discovery that I've been on, of peeling back the layers of first understanding myself, which is what I call in the golden triangle of connection. Our connection to self allows for connection to others, which allows for connection to purpose. Though until we peel back the layers of our own onion, we might have superficial relationships to ourselves and to others, but the real deep intimacy comes from understanding yourself, and then intimacy just begins to blossom all around you and light up your life.
I love this so much. And I'm sure that every woman listening can identify with this. As you were speaking, I was nodding my head and I was even feeling my heart hurt because I remember all those times where I didn't know myself and I didn't realize the magic that was all around me. And even now,
have a hard day or something happens and we forget. And this oftentimes can be a barrier for us to really creating the kind of freedom we want, the life we want, the wealth we want. And so I love that you brought this out to begin with. The first pillar of the Women's Wealth Code is wisdom. And another reason why I was so excited to have you here, because you have really cultivated what it means to tap into your personal power and to be able to blossom and share that with others, which has created profit for you and wealth and joy, all the things we want in our lives. And what I'm wondering is, how do you stay in connection with that wisdom, with that intuition? I know you and I have talked about the fact that you have a 2 hour practice every day. Some women don't have that time. I know you'll be able to share with us little tidbits of things we can do if we don't have that time. But I'd love to hear more about how you use this tool to connect with yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Tamara. I understand. I completely get it. Whether you spend 2 minutes, 2 hours, 2 days working on cultivating the inner intuition, it's worth it. Over time, it is worth it. I write a weekly article on LinkedIn called Inspired Living Tools. And a couple weeks back, I just wrote one about why I treat my intuition like a stock portfolio. And what I do is every single day, I start off with a little bit of journaling. I actually start with non-dominant, in my case, it's my left hand journaling. Then I move to right hand journaling. In fact, today was so profound. I'm going to share it. I can't even believe I'm going to share this, but why not? I'm being called to share it right now. So I have very vivid dreams tomorrow. Most evenings, I build and destroy worlds in my dreams and I remember them vividly. But last night was more poignant than normal because I had a particular dream. My ex-husband and I have been, we have been together for 7, 8 years now. And in the dream, my ex-husband and I were together and we were mourning the loss of a little mouse that was dying. And it was so crazy. And so we're like at this tea shop and trying to get the mouse tea and we're like crying and sobbing. And I don't even talk to my ex-husband anymore. And so this morning I wake up and I start journaling with my higher self. Dear higher self, what would you like me to know? What does it mean about this dream that I had? And what does it mean about the death of mouse? Well, I share this dream with my now husband as before I start journaling. So I journal and my higher self gives me like this deep, profound wisdom. And it says, oh, it's about small things that you're letting go of in your life and the release of the ego and the death of it. And so I'm doing all this. And my husband, as I go to sit next to him to have a cup of coffee, he says, my love, can I show you what I pulled up on chat? So meanwhile, while I was journaling, he had asked ChatGPT, what does dreaming about a dead or dying mouse mean? And it was identical to what my intuition had written seconds earlier. I've never had anything that was quite that like, wow, powerful. So I'm constantly engaging with my subconscious, my higher self, whether it's through dreams, through journaling. So I start every day with the non-dominant followed by dominant hand journaling. Then I go into writing a few things that I appreciate down, normally at least 10 things that I'm grateful for every morning. Then I go into traditional meditation. I do TM, followed by heart focused breathing by heart math. I do inner child work. And then the part where I check my intuition like a stock portfolio is I have a preset list of questions. Before I begin my morning meditation, I'll write down anywhere from 5 to 20 or 30 questions. Now, over half of those questions are verifiable. Will my meetings happen today? Will my flight be on time today? I travel a lot. Is the stock market up or down? Is Bitcoin up or down? Do I buy or sell today? And then what I do is over the course of a day, I'll cross check my intuition against the accuracy and the veracity of was I 70% accurate, 50%, 80%. On good days, I tend to average 70 to 90% accuracy. But some days, you don't sleep as well, or what, like last night, I remember I woke up a couple times during the night. You might not get as accurate. And then I make more important decisions on days where I have higher accuracy.
Wow, that's amazing. So there's so much to unpack there. First of all, talk about the dominant versus the non-dominant writing, because I've done exercises with the non-dominant, and this might be something really simple for listeners to tune into, and maybe they'll start this exercise. So can you talk about why you do that?
Yeah, it creates new neuron pathways. Even just brushing our teeth with our left hand instead of our right gives our brain access to creating new neural networks that we wouldn't otherwise have. I remember a couple of things happened many years ago. A friend of mine who is an intuitive said, if you want to communicate, for example, with people who are deceased, write a question with your dominant hand and write the answer with your non-dominant hand. That was the first time I'd ever heard of non-dominant journaling. And then I'm always willing to challenge myself. And there was some book I was reading at the end of last year that said using your non-dominant hand will develop your brain. And I'm like, great, game on. So every day now for about 6 months, I've always started with journaling a paragraph with my non-dominant hand. And sometimes I will ask a question with my dominant hand. It could be any question. Higher self, what would you like me to know? What is my purpose? Anything you can imagine. And then sometimes because if you really look into brain research and neuroscience, the right and left hemispheres are not always clearly communicating. So in my case, the right hemisphere, which is the side that's created and linked to creativity, is linked to the left hand. So you might be able to tap into subconsciously things that you might not otherwise get access to as
I
well.
love that. I love that. Now, hopefully, no one's going to start writing with their opposing hand and then start estimates on the stock market. Say, Jennifer said that was my intuition.
No.
So, so tell me now. I think tell me now. How do you think that that has helped you with your relationship with money and growing wealth? And then we're going to segue also into relationships and that how that's worked for you.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, again, do go listen to your stock portfolio experts. I am not a financial planner. I am not a financial advisor, though I will tell you Bitcoin has funded my current company because literally every day I'll ask, and I have some funny stories about this. So when my husband and I started dating in 2018, my now husband, he was very invested in crypto, and I had heard about this like coin thing, and I didn't know anything about it. And I'm as risk averse as they come, like super risk averse. So we started dating, and Bitcoin, I think, is 3,000. Ethereum is $80. To give context, Bitcoin as of today is probably 109,000, and Ethereum's 2,500, right? So being as risk averse as I am, I don't gamble. You know, if I go to Vegas, I put $20 in the slot machine. As soon as I'm a dollar up, I take $21 out. Like that's how I kind of do things, right? So my boyfriend at the time starts teaching me about this. So I'm buying Ethereum at 80 and selling it for 160. I'm like, yes, 100% return on investment. This is long before I started involving intuition in it. And then fast forward years later, as the markets got a little bit more, and then I had sold a company and I had a little bit more money to play with. So I wind up starting to play with this, and I would literally ask my higher self, is Bitcoin up or down from where it was yesterday? If is it in my highest and best good to buy or sell? And for the last 7 years now, that's how I've managed my Bitcoin portfolio and crypto, and it's worked. So I know,
All
but
our
then something to funny.
credibility is out the window now.
Uh, yeah. Hey, I'm not gonna lie. You could talk to my CPA. I've been up year on year, knock on wood, thankfully for that. But again, so something funny did happen to tell one on myself. When I was, it must have been 2021. The markets were pretty volatile then. Bitcoin hit an all-time high of like 55K, right? And it is a real investment. I mean, there's EFTs or whatever, ETFs, I think they're what they're
Absolutely.
called. So real people do invest in them. So the funniest thing is in 2021, I remember sitting in Paris and I kept buying Bitcoin, but I stopped hearing my higher self. You know how you do something egoically? Like I could clearly hear that I was not being accurate, nor was I hearing my intuition. And I kept buying Bitcoin when it was at the height of the market. This was like November of 2021. So I did have to sit on it for a year or two because I wasn't clearly hearing my intuition. And then in the long run, it still wound up paying off in, spades. But that was pretty funny. So I do use my intuition to determine who do I do business with? Who do I not do business with? What clients do I take? What clients do I not take? What do I invest in? What do I not invest in? I also use it for travel. I mean, I just had the wildest thing, speaking of Austin, which is I know where we met. I had something kind of crazy happen. So this is why I always cross-check my intuition on my travels. I travel, I've already had 5 or 6 international trips this year since January 1st between Europe and the US or Europe and Dubai and different places. And so I'm constantly cross-checking my intuition because people will say, how can you go on 30 flights in a month and not be drained? Well, it's because everything always works out. So I was supposed to be on a flight from British Airways from London to Cancun on April 30th. it's already booked, etc. And a dear friend of mine, JP, lives in Austin. He randomly invites me to his birthday party, April 26th, whatever it is, 4 days earlier. Now I'm already traveling a lot and I'm like, oh, I don't have the bandwidth, but I love this guy and I'd love to be there for his birthday. So I meditate on it. And the way I cross-check this is I check for 3 to 5 days to be sure I'm not hearing my ego and that I hear the same message consistently. So for about 3 to 5 days, I'm asking, do I go with JP? Do I go to his party? And I hear yes, unequivocally. So then I'm like, okay, throw me a bone here because I already have one flight booked. You're going to have to give me, I only fly business, a good business class flight direct to Austin. And there's only one flight that British Airways offers. And literally via points, I do all of this. There's a whole other travel conversation we can have of how I save tens of thousands of dollars traveling around the world using systems like this. So I find the only flight that's available for points that's the exact same cost as the one I was going to do in Cancun. Long story short, I get the flight in on April 25th, get there April 26th, meet incredible people, go to his birthday. It's life-changing. The 29th, I believe it was, Monday, is when there was a power outage in Portugal and in Spain. And I had already paid for this retreat that was happening April 30th in Mexico. I would have missed the other flights if I hadn't listened to my intuition. If I had stayed in Portugal on April 29th, tried to take the flight on April 30th, those connecting flights were all canceled because of the power outage, and I would have missed this other
I
retreat.
love that. I love that. And I'm sorry I missed you at the party. I was at a concert with my daughter.
I know. We just missed each other. It was a great
Yeah,
party. I
we
sang
came, but
Don't
we
Stop
were late.
Believing.
We came, but we were late. So
Oh, right. Yeah,
I
we
know
just missed each
exactly.
other.
So I'm wondering, there, I hope that the listeners are tapping into something here where they can find what part of themselves is their wisdom, is their intuition talking. And I'm wondering how, I know you're saying you check it a couple times with yourself and you do a lot of work, so you're really connecting with yourself. How do you know that it's not just you kind of saying, oh yeah, I should buy Bitcoin now, or or I should invest in the stocks right now, kind of thing? How do you know that it's you? How can listeners learn that? Because you don't think everybody, not
Great.
everybody, you believe that everybody has this intuition. I remember talking to you about this, and you said, no, we all have this. So how can we learn what you do?
Great question. So it's different for everybody. For me, I hear things more like yeses and nos and I feel it. And then other people, like my husband, will get a spidey sense, like he'll feel it in his belly, like he'll feel it in his body. So you have to learn what yeses and nos feel like. So for example, I can give your listeners a very uncouth exercise that my business coach taught me, and I almost fired him. I will remember exactly where I was on a Monday night at 6 p.m. 10, 12 years ago when my business coach said, I'm going to teach you how to listen to your heart. And I'm like, I'm going to fire you. What are you talking about? I literally remember exactly where I was when we were having this conversation. And I can teach your listeners the same thing he taught me, but it's also pause, fast forward. If you're not, it can be jarring to hear it, and it's helpful to illustrate the point I'm about to give. Are you open to me sharing
Yes,
this?
I'm gonna say that
So,
we're all open. All the listeners are open. Sorry, everyone. You're gonna love it.
okay. All right. So here's what happens. So Julian's an expert in something called human design. You can all go get your free chart. I'm not a promoter or affiliated or anything. jovianarchive.com. Get your free chart, throw it in ChatGPT. It'll interpret it, give you everything you need. It even says what your internal authority is. In my case, one of my internal authorities is my heart. So this is why Julian's telling me to listen to my heart. Everybody feels it in a different place in your body. For you, it might be your gut. It might be, your kind of like womb area. It might be your solar plexus. For me, I feel my intuition most clearly in my heart. It's like an expansive feeling. So here's what Julian tells me. I'm going to take you and the listeners through it right now. Imagine right now a basket, Tamara, overflowing of puppies and kittens. Just imagine that basket. Feel it in your body. Shut your eyes. Feel it for a moment and feel what it feels like to think of a basket overflowing with puppies and kittens. And let's throw some like little baby chicks in there too. Like, oh, I feel it in my body. Do you feel
Yes,
that?
it's yummy.
Uh, okay, so where in your body do you feel that? How does that feel to
I
you?
feel it in my belly.
Okay, so for your belly. So for me, it's more my heart. For me, it's like an expansive feeling spreading upwards in my heart. How and where, what does it feel like in your belly? Thinking of these puppies and kittens and baby chicks, and they're all crawling on top of each other in a basket. where and what does that feel like in your belly? It's in your belly, but is it expanding?
It
What does it
feels
feel like?
warm and it feels kind of like mushy and soft.
Oh, okay, good. Perfect. So in your case, that's a yes. In my case, a yes feels like an opening flowing upwards towards my heart. That's how I feel it. All right. So everybody with me, basket overflowing, puppies and kittens. That's what a yes feels like in your body. Now imagine that basket of puppies and kittens and baby chicks gets run over by a car. I said this was graphic. I said it's to feel that in your body. Stay with it. Where and how does that feel in your body?
That moves to my heart.
And what does that feel like?
It
Is it
feels
hard?
it
Is it
feels
soft?
hard
Is it
and it feels tight and it feels like it hurts, like a
okay?
piercing.
Great. So you can go ahead and open. So you can open your eyes, wiggle your fingers and toes. That's a yes and a no in your body. It takes time. I was ready to kill him the first time, A, for the exercise, and B, for even saying, I'm going to teach you how to listen to your heart. I would have thought he was off his rocker. And now, 12, 13 years later, I cannot thank Julian enough. And he's the business partner of my current tech company that we're building together because of all the wonderful gifts that he taught me. So this is just one way. There are many ways. Now, to go back to another way, this is why I empirically validate it. I love science. As you know, I did a 17-part series with Deepak Chopra and Don Hoffman. I love studying quantum physics, neuroscience, all of that. If I could have been anything else in the world, I would have loved to have been a neuroscientist or a quantum physicist because I love facts and details. So when I say I'm cross-checking my intuition, I am going to ask at least 5 to 10 questions that I can validate throughout the day. Start with 5, start small and check your accuracy. Will all my meetings happen? Will any of them be late? Anything that you can empirically validate. And then if you're asking questions about the market, before you look at your phone, ask, is the market up or down? That's something you can empirically validate. Is it up? Is it down? Etc. And then you're going to cross-check if you hear yes, buy or sell today, cross-check, were you at least at 80% or more accurate that day? Don't do it if you're not. If you're not, wait until a day when you're feeling more clear and clean.
Absolutely. And when in doubt, if you've bought stocks or Bitcoin and you're holding for the long term, that's another way to go. You might have other things you're doing and
Yes.
you may not want to tap in with that. And there are so many other aspects of our life that affect us, whether we're challenged by relationship or a business partner. There's always something where we can tap into this. And I'm also seeing a lot of deep connection with self, where I can see how expansive this is with the relationship with money. And I'd love to hear what is your relationship to money? How do you think of wealth?
It's a great question. I think of it all as interchangeable. So I'm going to go down a little bit of a spiritual
Mhm.
hole here because we're talking about like light, connection to self, etc. So I like to think of money as an energy. Everything is energy. Everything I like to, we'll digress here for a moment. I'm going to go quantum physics on everybody from my friend Don Hoffman, who wrote a brilliant book called The Case Against Reality, Why Evolution Hid the Truth from Our Eyes. Incredible neuroscientist, wrote a mathematical formula for consciousness. And I'll tie this into how I feel about and how money occurs for me. If you were to imagine in Don's theory, here's what he states. We know scientifically, empirically, that space-time is not fundamental. Up until about 20 years ago, scientists thought that space-time, that's what they call this experience that we have, Tamar and Jennifer having a podcast in whatever cities, respectively, Lisbon and Austin, that we're sitting in. That's what back in the day, before 20 years ago, science would have said space-time is fundamental. It is 8:28 p.m. in Lisbon, and that's fundamentally true. What leading science tells us is we don't know what's fundamental to the universe. So everybody's purporting theories of everything. And what Don Hoffman, my friend, has written is a mathematical formula for consciousness. So here's what he states. He says, consciousness is fundamental. Space-time emerges as a theater that we get projected into as something he calls conscious agents. So if you imagine that you have conscious agents, some of which are projected into this theater called space-time, giving the experience of Tamar and Jennifer and each one of you out there listening, this is giving us that experience projected into the theater of space-time, of being alive, being a certain age, having this conversation, right? Some things are not projected into the theater of space-time. Some conscious agents are not projected. Those could be dark matter. It could be deceased people who we're no longer connected to, but it accounts for all of that. So let's imagine, again, going back to this idea that consciousness is fundamental. We could go down a deep dive into the AI side of this, but we'll take money for this example. If consciousness is fundamental and everything in the universe emerges from that, then money by its very nature is consciousness. So our relationship to ourselves, to one another, our consciousness is directly correlative to money. So the way I see it all is it's entangled, to use another quantum physics sort of a term, is that you have this idea of quantum entanglement. So for me, my relationship to myself and how I perceive myself is entangled with my relationship to money. So if I have a relationship that I'm not good enough or that I'm only worth something if I have money, then that's going to be reflected in how I engage with money across all settings, whether it's my business, whether it's my business partner, whether it's my romantic partner. Everything is merely a mirror of our internal world. That gets into a whole other thing about holographic universes, but everything is basically mirroring itself. Does that make sense? I went a little
You went
quantum
very
physics on
quantum
that.
physics, and I love the essence of what you're saying, which is essentially that money is this energy that flows with everything else in the field of our realities and non-realities. And as a consequence, anything that you're thinking about money is going to be reflecting in every place in your life. So if you're not making as much, or if you're not having as much flow in your life, there's something within inside you that is creating a narrative that is preventing that from
Ah,
occurring.
100%. I'll give you a couple of fun little tips too that years ago I used to teach. So I built and sold a company in the legal recruiting field. And of course, in recruitment, there were job seekers of all types I would encounter. And oftentimes people would be dissatisfied with how much they were earning and they would want more, they would want this, that. But then there would be things that would happen. So I'll share with your listeners a technique that I taught people years ago, and then actually a modern day version of the technique I'm now working with executives that I coach on this. So years ago, it was 2012. It was during the Great Recession, and many people had lost jobs. There were very few jobs to be had. I worked with most of the biggest law firms in the world and some of the biggest corporations. And there was a lady who I remember I got referred to her, and it was like November of 2012. And we sit down at Starbucks for our meeting, and she's sitting there and she's crushed. She just got laid off from a major law firm. She was a breadwinner. She had a husband and two kids, and it's now the holidays. And her first words to me are, Jennifer, it's the holidays, and I don't have any money to provide for my family and kids, and I'm the breadwinner. What am I going to do? I said, number one, let's first look at your perspective. So, going back to our consciousness, our awareness of how we perceive anything in our life, money or otherwise, our relationships, our business. I said, number one, when is the last time that you had 6 weeks off during the holidays to celebrate Christmas and Thanksgiving with your husband and kids without having to work? She said, I'd never had that. I said, great. So, number one, could we first see this as a gift rather than something happening to you where you're being given this gift of 6 weeks with your family you would never otherwise get? She's like, yeah, that's great, but I still need to put money and food on the table, right? I said, great. So number one, we can agree. All I'm asking you to do is to look for how this is a gift over the next 6 weeks. She says, great, let's do it. Number two, I taught her a technique that I wrote about in my first book about job hunting and so forth. That was called a statement of intent and a daily declaration. And it went something like this. So you create a by when. In her case, she wanted to get a job by the end of the year. By December 31st, 2012, she had a job paying her XYZ, more than she was making before, within 5 miles of her house. So by X, I'm creating the possibility that by X, I've created blah, blah, blah with da, da, da parameters, right? And you can add or more. So we teach her this. Now, the third step is you declare it out loud every day. So as I mentioned, I love neuroscience, and I've had neuroscientist friends validate this as well. I told her to do her daily declaration. You declare that the moment your eyes pop open in the morning, and I had already proven this for myself. I could tell you crazy stories of amounts of money that I would just speak and boom, they would just show up, right? So I teach her to do this, and she starts doing it every
She's
single
saying it out
morning.
loud.
And I said, if I get
Out
a
loud.
job, out loud, out loud. So this is the daily declaration. First, you write down by when, what you want to create, blah, blah. I'm creating the possibility of XYZ by da, da, da. So you write that all down, and then you declare it out loud every day. You get bonus points if you keep it on your phone, on your smartphone, your device, in front of your computer. I've had many clients do that over the years. So she does all this, and it's slow time during the holidays, and there weren't a lot of things I was calling her for. And I'll always remember this moment tomorrow. It's Christmas Eve. I'm shutting down the office early. I'm the last one in the office, and it's one of those old like landline phones, right? And the phone rings, and it's the last call I'm taking right before I'm about to leave for the holiday. And it's this woman. We'll call her Susan. And Susan says, Jennifer, Jennifer. And I said, yeah, are you okay? Are you and your family okay? Because I remembered her vividly. She said, yes, yes, I'm just calling to thank you. And she's in tears. And I said, oh my gosh, what's going on? She says, I just got a job closer to home, paying me more money than I've ever made before. And I want to thank you for this gift of the last 6 weeks you've given me with my family. That changed my life. I will always remember that woman. So I have taught this technique to thousands of people around the world. I've used it myself. Even my ex-husband was hilarious. I started doing this when I was in my early 20s. I would do this every year for myself. Back the only time I really had a job working for somebody else, I was like, oh, I'll create making $100,000 or more by December 31st, 2005. That year I made 120. Next year, my ex-husband's like, we're dating at the time. He's like, yeah, this is BS. Let's see you make 150. I was like, okay, I'm creating the possibility of making 150,000 or more. I made 160. She's like, okay, if this is really real, let's see you make $250,000. So it was like 2007. I'm 25 years old, like 26, very, very young. I said, okay, I'm creating the possibility of making $250,000 or more by December 31st, whatever the year was, 2007. I made 275. And at that point, I had trained everybody in the company how to do this, and everybody had, the company broke every record, had exponential growth. I stopped doing this, Tamar, for years until I start building the next company. And I hadn't done this for years myself, despite training other people how to do it. And one day my ex-husband says to me, why'd you stop doing that thing? Why don't you do this for millions of dollars for your current company? And so then I started doing it again. And lo and behold, the company gets acquired and we did a great job and we generated lots and lots of, and I just started doing it for revenue instead of salary. So I say I did that for years. Now my new favorite thing that I'm working with executives and teams on is something where you take images, you imagine ChatGPT, and you put your stock portfolio goals, your Bitcoin goals, your investment goals, whatever your portfolio goals are. You create images that represent that in whatever your favorite AI generator is. And you can even put your own picture in there. Like I have a CEO I'm coaching right now who wants a new Porsche 911. So we like had AI create an image of him driving a 911 down PCH, right? And you put it in there and you put it to music and you add these images together. It is mind-blowing, like exploding head emoji. I started doing this for myself tomorrow back in March, and I created 10 slides, back in March. By the first week of May, 5 of those had happened. Like Bitcoin's back through the roof. This happened, that
Wow.
happened. I'm like, even my husband like is involved in a project, and I created one for him, and one of his projects is through the roof. So I'm a big fan, to take it all back to your original question, that everything is consciousness. It's the consciousness, and what we say, speak, think, and act and do directly reflects our
I
inner
love it.
world.
I love it. Now let's dive into relationships, because not only have you been able to master this for yourself, and you've given us some great tools and techniques that I hope people will try for themselves and see how it goes. And you talk about how the the relationships that you have are they're the currency, they're the juice for you. And I would love for you to share a bit about that. And the other thing that I want to share is, there was a great question that you said you wanted to speak about, which was what the biggest misconception women have about networking and partnerships. So I'd love for you to tie that in, because it's really important for us as women to, one, step into our power of consciousness, step into all that power that we have, and then to have the opportunity to see how we can navigate throughout the world with ourselves and the environment and others.
Hmm. Why are relationships currency? Well, I'm going to go a step beyond just saying relationships are currency and say authenticity and trust are going to be the new currency. In this AI world that we're so fast that we are speeding along at millions of miles an hour, so much so that they are losing their ability to predict the future 10, 20, 30 years out. Even the UN, sustainability goals that we're coming up on 2030, the last set of goals, they're not going to be able to predict the 2050 goals because of the hockey stick effect that we're seeing with AI. What does this mean in terms of currency and relationships? Things that are real, that are authentic, the greater that we can put our trust in a person, in a relationship, and have an authentic relationship is going to be the new currency of the future because AI is going to outsource a lot of what we're going to do. There is not going to be much. And I don't mean this in a scary doom and gloom way. I mean in a great way. A friend of mine, Curtis Estes, years ago wrote a book called Your Life by Design, where it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but instead you write down all the things on the bottom rung of the pyramid that you hate. Like for me, taking out the garbage is like, put a gun to my head, I'll take out the garbage, but otherwise don't count on me for that, right? Like that is not something I enjoy doing. And then you go up the rungs until the tippy top of this little pyramid to the things you love. For me, podcasting, speaking, building companies, innovating, ideating, coaching, like these are all things, traveling the world. These are things that fill me joy. That's the top of my pyramid. The way I see this is that AI is going to allow us to outsource everything below. Well, also at the top of this pyramid is our relationships. When we have deep, authentic connection, that is going to be the one thing that AI cannot create for us. AI can't go have a drink with Tamar at a party. Yeah, maybe down the road one day you'll have robots. And who knows, maybe I'll be mistaken. I'm always willing to be wrong in all of this. But right now, in the immediate foreseeable future, you might meet a robot at a party 10 years from now tomorrow, and maybe you become best friends, and I'll be proven wrong, and we'll sit back and laugh about this podcast. But in general, at least for the foreseeable future, having deep intimacy and connection with another human being is something that AI cannot generate for us. So the more that we can cultivate first the relationship to ourselves, because again, that's going to be reflected out in the world of how other people show up, is our relationship with ourselves is reflected and mirrored to us in every person we meet. Now, to take it back to the deeper question you asked about what we need to know about women and our power, I remember meeting a guy and being like awestruck, right? I don't follow anybody. I don't follow stars. I don't read the news. I don't care. I could be sitting and talking to an A-list celebrity. I really don't care nor know who they are. It doesn't matter to me. But there was one guy I remember hearing speak at a conference. And at the time, I forget his name, it must have been like 2010. He was considered, if you Googled him back in the day, the most well-networked guy in the world. And I was like, oh my God, like, who is this guy? Like, I want to be him when I grow up, right? Larry somebody or other, I think was his name. And I remember he stood on stage in front of thousands of people and he's talking about how he's built this massive global network. And he said the secret to building a network is to find out what matters to somebody and to provide that. And that's what matters. And so in the course of this talk, Larry mentioned a need he had for a business development person in South America. Well, even back then, I started to understand the importance of cultivating trust, authenticity, connection, and delivering on what matters. So in the back of my mind, Larry shares this from stage. I'm going, oh, I know this woman who would be great for him. So I'm not a fan of waiting in lines, also at the bottom level of my pyramid. But for this guy, I waited in a line. Eventually, it's my turn to talk to him. I'm like, Larry, listen, thank you. Learned a lot from you. By the way, I have this woman in South America who specializes in BD. Is that helpful? I heard you mention that. Larry pulls over his assistant, takes a photo with me, and says, I want to remember this woman, set up an immediate follow-up meeting with her. So that's when I really got it, that I don't care if you're a man, a woman, a they, a them, whoever, whatever you identify as, we are all equally powerful. But what I think that a lot of times women don't think about as much is women are often, unfortunately, in competition with others because they're in competition with themselves. Because a lot of us judge ourselves more so than guys. Like they've done studies on this that show men will apply for a job 100,000 outside of their salary range, even if they're underqualified for it, because they're overinflated in their sense of self. Whereas women, we tend to judge ourselves. We go judgy bunny on ourselves, right? And I find that the more we judge ourselves as women, the more we engage and encounter other women who judge us, because again, everybody is simply mirroring our own consciousness back to us. So I invite all of us out there as women, fall in love with yourself, believe in yourself, ask yourself what matters, and then don't be afraid to go out there and help others. I don't even think I've shared this with you, Tamara. In the last 3 months, I think it's been, I had one of the coolest gifts ever given to me. And I say this because it's a wonderful group of men and women and everybody around the world. In February of this year, a friend of mine, Johan, I've since perpetuated what I learned from Larry. A friend of mine, Johan, wanted to thank me for referring him 32 people over the course of a year. Now, if you had asked me if I referred him 32 people, I didn't even pay attention, right? I don't even think about it. It just kind of comes through me because I love to be of service and help people with what matters. So Johan urgently messages me one day on WhatsApp. He said, Jen, I've been trying to give you a gift for a week. Get in your WhatsApp. There's a gift waiting for you. I'm like, okay. Get in WhatsApp. In this WhatsApp group, Tamar, he created it called the Jennifer Hill Tribe. It started with these 32 people, philanthropists, billionaires, investors, thought leaders, podcasters speakers that I had introduced him to, and put them as a thank you into this group for me. And I was like, well, shoot, what the hell do I do with this thing, right? And so next thing you know, here we are, whatever it is, May, and we're at 220 people around the world, continuing to exponentially grow. And all we do is help each other. And I think that this group is a great testament. There's no fee or anything for it. I don't try and add people to it. It just kind of organically happens. And I can't tell you the amount of people that said it's been so helpful. And old Jennifer, 15, 20 years ago, couldn't have held space for that group or been a part of it because I felt not good enough. I didn't belong. I was judgy bunnying myself. I was getting into comparison, games with myself and others. I'm not good enough. I'm not this. We have beautiful humans inside and out from every background that you can imagine, every age, every race, every, sexual preference that you can imagine. And it's not about that. But the more we fall into that comparison trap, and it really is a trap, the more it limits our capacity for connection, most importantly to ourselves, and then tangentially to other people. I've never said any of that before, so I hope that all landed for your
Oh, I
audience.
love it. It's such an important message and reminds me and hopefully every woman that's listening how amazing we all are and what capacity we have when we take the time to really nurture ourselves. And in that, we go out in the world and we grow more wealth, we make more money, we have more freedom, and nurture relationships and love for others. And we can be in service of others, which is truly a great joy and such a blessing. And this was exactly what I wanted my listeners to hear today, Jennifer. This has been just extraordinary.
Thank you, Tamara. I feel like my life is not my own. I'm really truly here to be of service. I get to live a life I love. I get to have a husband I love and cherish and who loves and cherishes me. I have wonderful relationships with family, with friends. And from the bottom of my heart, Tamara, that is my only life stream, is that every human being gets to have this experience, that you may fall deeply in love and acceptance and cherishing yourself, and may that exponentially allow you to love, cherish and accept others. So that's my wish and dream for every person I meet.
So beautiful. Talk about a wealthy life. That is, that's definitely a woman growing wealth. I love it. I love it in every aspect. Now, if the listeners would like to connect with you, how can they do so?
Thank you. So, a couple ways you can Google Inspired Living Tools on LinkedIn. Encourage you to check out. You can find great weekly articles there. You can subscribe to my other newsletter that gives you access to where I'm going to be speaking, special discounts, summits I'm talking at. If you go to Jennifer, K as in kite, Hill, HILL.com. Or if you're interested in the technology aspect of what I do, I love to help people better understand themselves. There's a free survey you can get a complimentary motivational report of how you're motivated, om.app/survey, om.app/survey. We answer 20 quick questions, and it's a proprietary algorithm we developed to help you better understand yourself. And it even gives you journal prompts, and it'll say, have you considered, are you giving yourself enough space? Are you holding healthy enough boundaries? So depending on how you're motivated, it'll give you a customized report that's completely free
I
for you.
absolutely love that. And we'll put all of that in the show notes. So if anyone didn't catch all of that, just look into the show notes and we'll have all that for you. So you can just click the link and connect in any way and enjoy the gifts that Jennifer has brought to us today. Thank you so much for being here. You are an amazing, extraordinary woman, giving us so many gifts and reminding us the most important thing, which is that the wealth is inside of us and we're all there. And from there, many will prosper so much more.
Thank you, Tamara. It's a pleasure.